In this video, I'm going to show you how you can edit a framework that's not a PLG using the admin console. It's going to be a rough walkthrough video that's going to help you to be able to see how you can edit the spelling or a wording of an outcome or heading within one of your frameworks that's not a PLG. I'll also show you how you can add new outcomes or headings to your framework, as well as adding whole new sections to your framework. Or maybe you're thinking or considering how you could restructure your framework. And this walkthrough video will be able to help you to do all those things. So I've logged into the admin console, and then I'm going to hover over system data at the top left, and then click on frameworks. I can then locate the framework. So in this example, I'm going to click in the search box at the top right, start to enter in English, and I've got a functional skills English framework that I want to edit today. So I've located the framework, and then I click Edit Framework and Manage Tags to the right of the framework that I want to edit. And then to start to edit the framework, I'm going to click Edit Framework Items at the top right. And I'm now on the screen where I can edit the framework. For those of you who've edited frameworks, PLGs using the web console, this screen will already partly feel familiar to you. But there has also got some additional features that we can now do. So we can enable drag and drop on the right hand side, and we can also enable bulk actions. So we can do move a number of outcomes or edit a number of outcomes at once. So let's first of all edit the wording of an outcome. So I can hover over an outcome, and if I wanted to edit it, I just click on it, and then the various options come up. And the one I'm going to be using first of all is this edit option just here. So I'm going to click on edit. The pop-up window will then come up, and I'll be able to see I could change it from having enable evidence capture. If evidence has already been linked to this outcome, then you won't be able to change it from having enable evidence capture ticked and selected, unless you first of all deselect any evidence that's linked to this specific outcome. So, but in this example, I'm going to leave that ticked. And then what I do want to do is just be able to show you how you could either edit if there's a spelling mistake or if you wanted to update in some way. So in this example, I'm just going to demonstration, I'm just going to put updated at the very end. Do you remember, if you are editing the wording of an outcome that has had evidence linked to it, that all the evidence that's already been linked to that outcome will be linked to the new wording? So make sure that all the evidence will still be in the right context to the new wording of the outcome. And then once you've completed that, you can just click Update at the bottom right of the pop-up window. The next item I want to be able to demonstrate how you can change is how to be able to move an item. So I'm going to scroll right to the bottom of this framework. And as you can see, in this framework, in this level, each outcome has been numbered. And for demonstration purposes, I've deliberately put one outcome in a place in the incorrect order, so I can now move it to the right place for this video. So to enable drag and drop, you just switch this on at the top right. And then these three lines appear on the right hand side, either next to headings or next to outcomes. And you can just click and hold the three lines and then pick the item up. And you can see this sort of dotted green line is going to indicate where it's going to land below item 6 in this example. And I drop it in. So we can now see that outcome, once I submit it for review, is in the place where I'd want it to be. I'm now also going to show you how you can add a new outcome in. So what we can now do is if you wanted to go back and say you click on an item and it doesn't bring up the options, then it may be that you still had enable drag and drop selected at the top right. So I'm going to deselect enable drag and drop. Those three lines on the right of each outcome will now not be displayed. But then if I click on the bottom outcome in this example, the add, edit, duplicate, outdent, and indent and delete options all come back. So in this example, we've already looked at how we can edit the wording of an outcome, and that's the same how you can edit the wording of a heading. What I'm also now going to do is click Add to add in a new outcome. The pop-up box appears, and then what I can do is I can add a new outcome into the box. So in this example, let's say it's going to be level 2.11, and then I can just, I could either write it in or I can paste it in. If you are pasting in a new outcome, it is worth me just mentioning what I just clicked on then. So if I right click again, you'll have options just to paste, but I would always recommend that you click paste as plain text, because that will hopefully mean that if you are copying from Word, or which sometimes can have hidden characters behind it, if you paste it as plain text, then hopefully those hidden characters won't come through. So where possible, please click paste as plain text when you're pasting in text from anywhere else. In this example, this is an outcome that I want to be able to link evidence to, so it is going to switch on enable evidence capture. I'm just going to be leaving that on. If this was a heading or an outcome that you don't want to link evidence to, then you can just deselect it. So I'm going to leave it selected for now, and then I'm going to click create at the bottom right of the pop-up window. And we can see that the new outcome has been added in. It thinks evidence for learning, though, that you've broken down the target above it into a smaller step of learning. You can see that's indicated by it being indented more. Another feature that we've added to the admin console, if I click on enable bulk actions at the top right, we've got a show indents button. So I'm going to click on show indents. And this indicates that all these outcomes are at indent level 3, and these 3 lines indicate that. And we can see that this specific outcome, the last one I've just added, is actually indented more. So what I can then do, if I wanted to move the item, is click on it. If that clicks on and the options don't come up, again, just deselect these options at the top. So I'm going to deselect enable bulk actions. Now, when I click on that bottom outcome, I can just click outdent to move the item to the left and outdent it once. And it's now lined up as with the other outcomes. And I can see that just by looking at it. But again, for demonstration, I'm going to enable bulk action, click on show indents again, and we can now see that it's at the same level of 3 indents as the outcome above it. There may be times where you want to add in a new level and new outcomes. So on the right-hand side, I've got level 3, and I've got 4 new outcomes that I want to be able to add into level 3. So I'm going to go back to the web console, and I'm going to click add at the bottom item. And just before I do that, I'm going to click enable bulk action, go back up to the top and click show indents, just to see that level 2 has 2 indents, and the outcomes of 3 in this specific framework. And each framework will be different depending on the way that it's structured. On show indents at the top, and then I can see that level 3 is currently on 2 indents. So what I can now do is add in my outcomes. So I'm going to switch off enable bulk action. I'm going to click on level 3, click the add button to be able to add new outcomes. This example, I'm now going to remember to switch on enable evidence capture. So I'm going to do that straight away. And I'm going to add in the outcomes. It says here on the left in the pop-up window, I can add each new item on a new line, and they'll all be added at the same time. So I'm going to copy on the right-hand side the 4 outcomes in this example. Click copy, click my left button in terms of the pop-up window, and I'm going to right-click, and again, remember to click paste as plain text. You can see by accident, as one of the lines has come through with a blank line. So I would recommend, where possible, to remove the blank lines so that when you're adding new outcomes, each new item is written on a new line, but there are no blank lines in between the items. So again, just double checking that I've switched on enable evidence capture. That's what I wanted. I'm going to click create at the bottom right. And we can now see that I've added in level 3 and I've added in 4 new outcomes. And again, I can see that they're at the right level, but if I ever wanted to check, enable bulk action and click on show indents. There are also other bulk actions that you can do. So I've already brought these outcomes across and they were selected to be able to link evidence to. But let's just pretend by accident I'd forgotten to click enable evidence capture and all these outcomes came across as headings. So I can switch them to make them headings or something that I can't link evidence to by selecting them when enable bulk action is enabled, and then clicking the cross at the top. And if you'd forgotten to select enable bulk action, that's how it would look. You can deselect all very quickly at the top left. So if I'd brought these outcomes across and at the time hadn't had enable evidence capture ticked, then this is how they may come across. But it's easy to edit it so that you can link evidence to it. Again, you just make sure you've got enable bulk action ticked. You select the items that you want to change in bulk, and you can just click this tick button towards the top to say, yes, you do want to enable evidence capture. So I click the tick. So the cross makes outcomes be that you can't link evidence to it. Remember that you can only change outcomes to make them not be able to have evidence linked to it if evidence hasn't already been linked to that outcome. And at any time, you can click deselect all at the top left. So there may be times that you want to restructure the framework in some way, where you want to move a whole section. So to demonstrate that, I'm going to move this section at the bottom, which I've just added, to another section of the framework. So first of all, I'm going to switch off enable bulk action, because I just want to rename it so it makes a bit more sense to the video. So let's say we're going to rename this level to actually click on it and click the edit, and I'm going to call this level 1B, and then click update. So it's updated the heading. So I'm going to enable bulk action, top right, and now I can select all next to any of the headings or subheadings. So in this example, I'm going to click select all next to level 1B. Then what we're going to be able to do is click cut selected, top left. And it's going to cut all those items, and then I can paste them to where I want it to go. So in this example, I'm going to scroll up. You can see the little green dotted lines indicate where it's going to be placed. So I've not clicked anything yet. I've just moved the cursor. I can move the cursor up and down, and I can see the green dotted lines indicate where it's going to be placed. And I just click on the outcome above where I want the new section to be moved to. So I'm going to click on this outcome just here. And you can now see we've got level 1. If I scroll down further, we've now got level 1B, and it's moved into that section. Again, I could click deselect all, and I could move different sections of the framework. So I want to look at what some of the other buttons are available. So I'm going to switch off enable bulk action. I'm going to click on where it says level 2. So we've looked at how you can add one outcome. We've also looked at how you can add a number of outcomes at once. We've looked at how you can use the edit button to edit the wording of the outcome or a heading. And just remember that if you edit the wording of an outcome, then any evidence that's already been linked to that outcome will be linked to the new wording. You can duplicate the wording of an outcome. So this won't duplicate any of the evidence that's been linked to an outcome, but it will duplicate the wording. So I'll show you that now. So another way of adding in a new level at the bottom, I suppose, could be to duplicate where it says level 2, and it adds in a new heading. And then I can move duplicate by enabling drag and drop at the top. I can then click on the 3 lines on the right side and move that to the very bottom of the framework if I wanted to. I could then disable enable drag and drop, click on the heading and edit it to be able to edit the wording to be level 3 in this example, and click update. So we've looked at add, we've looked at edit, we've looked at duplicate. The outdent, we've looked at how you can move outcomes to the outdent them more, and also how to indent them. And it is important that the framework is structured in the way you want it. Do remember that you can enable bulk action at the top right, and click show indents, and the dotted 3 lines indicate how much items are indented in each case. So I'm going to switch that back off, enable bulk action, click back on the button, and then to delete an item, you just click on the delete button. It'll ask you to confirm it, and again, you won't be able to delete any item that's either had evidence linked to it or that's had assessment judgments against it. If you did want to delete either of those items, you would first of all need to unlink any evidence linked to the outcome, as well as delete any assessment judgments that have been made against the outcome, if you actually want to delete the outcome completely from the framework. So what we can now do is we can now submit these changes for review. So this is access to the secure website on the admin console. So you can save your work as you go by clicking save at the bottom right. So I'm going to do that now just for demonstration. So I'm going to click save at the bottom right. It'll say these changes have been saved as work in progress. And in order to apply these changes, you will need to review and approve them. These changes must be approved by an assessment manager. So I'm just going to click OK. And you may do that if you're going off for a meeting, or you just want to save your work as you go if you're starting to make quite large changes to the framework. Once you've completed the changes that you want to make, or you've completed the changes that you want to make at that time, you can submit it for review. So what I am now going to do is click submit for review at the bottom right. A pop-up window will come up where you can enter the reason for the change. And you might put, added a new section or corrected a spelling mistake. You don't have to put a reason, but you can, and that's what the space is there for. And then you can also, whoever makes these changes needs to be either an assessment user or an assessment manager. And the username and password that they enter is that the ones that's unique to them. So I'm entering in my username, and I'm also going to enter in my password, and I'm going to click Submit for Review at the bottom right. The pop-up comes up to say, do I want to save my password? I'm going to say no, thanks. So I've submitted those changes for review, and any changes that you've made in terms of adding new wording or editing the wording will be highlighted in red. And also the new section that we've added in, that'll also be highlighted in red too, if we scroll down towards the bottom. If I scroll back to the top, you can have options to click on the current view, how it currently is. The proposed view is how the changes that are currently proposed, and the reason gives the reason for why these changes were submitted. So an assessment user could do everything that we've just done there if they had access to the admin console, username and password. Do remember when they submitted it for review, they enter in the username and password that's specific to them. Those are the login details that they use to log into the web console and the assessment area on the iOS app. So what we can then do is, if an assessment manager is doing this, they've got an approve button at the bottom right straight away. So if you're an assessment manager, you submitted the changes, you can just click approve at the bottom right. For demonstration, I'm going to go back to system data and frameworks to show it how it looks if an admin user had submitted the changes, and then an assessment manager is the person who's logged into the admin console. So let's say you've just logged back into the admin console as an assessment manager now. You would hover over system data top left, and you'd click on frameworks. You can then clearly see straight away there's a changes pending tab next to the framework that we've edited. But again, you could use the search button to locate it. Once you've located the framework that has changes pending, if you're an assessment manager, you would click edit framework and manage tags. And then what you could do is click edit framework items at the top right. The assessment manager is then on the same screen as we were before, where the assessment manager can look at the current framework items and the structure. They can click on the proposed, and they can click on reasons, and they can toggle through the views they want. Once the assessment manager is happy with the changes, and they've checked the whole framework and checked it's the way that they want it to be, then they can click approve at the bottom right of the bottom framework screen. So I'm going to click approve now at the bottom right. The assessment manager then enters in their assessment username and password. And again, that's the one that they use to log into the web console or the assessment area of the app. So I've entered in my assessment manager login details, and I'm going to click continue at the bottom right of the pop-up window. Just then give it a moment while it updates. The more changes, the larger framework, it might take a little bit longer. And then I'm just going to click no thanks again on my pop-up window that's asking me if I want to save the password. And we can now see that that framework changes are now live. So we can see that we've added in the word updated in this example here. And if we scroll down to the bottom of the framework, we've added in the new section. As the framework may already be on your iPads and devices, as the iPads and Android devices are opened and closed, they'll recognize that there's been a change in the framework. And when they go to capture evidence against that framework, they'll be then being seen the new current structure. On an iPad, you can also click the refresh button from the home screen of the app. You'd click on the cog at the top left, and you can click refresh top right, and it'll recognize the changes that have taken place. If you have updated your framework and you've already created an assessment framework and/or assessment books that are linked to that original framework, do remember that you may now need to edit the assessment framework and the assessment books. If you're editing the wording of an outcome, then you may not need to do that because that outcome may have already been selected in the assessment framework and assessment book. But you can imagine if you're adding in a whole new section to the framework, then that section hasn't been included in the assessment framework when you've been setting it up, either as an assessment item, and you haven't told the system how you want to assess those items. So you'd update your assessment framework and/or any assessment books that have been linked to it if you're adding in new sections. If you are already using Insights for Learning and you've added summary totals into the framework, and you've actually now moved sections around in the framework, then again, you'll need to go back to the assessment framework. And if you have moved whole sections, you'd remove the summary items from the framework in terms of the assessment framework, and then add them back in as well. And that would give you your percentage figures against maybe at each level stage of what area of that framework has been achieved for specific learners. Hope that's been useful. It's a rough guide on how to use the admin console to edit a framework. And as ever, always feel free to get in touch if we can help in any way. We're here to help. So you can contact us using services@theteachercloud.net, and do get in touch if you have any questions along the way.